I'm Brian Murty, and I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to address the town board.
Brian, how do you spell your last name?
Murty, M-U-R-T-Y,
Thank you.
and I live in the Walden Trace subdivision. I've got some copies of my comments in case you need to look at them at your leisure afterwards. But basically, I'd just like to say a few short things about the proposed rezone. And I know it goes back many years, and I know we've all made comments, certainly in my neighborhood about the previous rezone, and some opposition to rezoning it to the residential commercial at the time that happened. But I think if you look at the quality of the neighborhood is essentially a residential neighborhood. And one of the reasons that people move to this residential neighborhood is a little bit more suburban in nature, a little bit more suburban part of Lancaster, where there's a little more wildlife, there's a little more tranquility, and it's not so convenient. If you want the convenience of the village, you live within a few miles of the village, and you can always, just take a little trip right into the village. And I think in rezoning this, in order to get neighborhood business, you're going to see a lot of car traffic, you're going to see a lot of activity, not just at, maybe typical 9 to 5 hours, but after, at bedtime hours for little children. You'll see the light shine of the cars in your living room window and things like that. And it also, if we looked at the original site plan for the entire site, there was a lot of green space that was set aside. And a lot of the green space that still exists in an undisturbed nature, this would kind of take the remaining 50% of that undisturbed green space, right off the map and put it into a neighborhood business district. And I think that, leaving it in a more natural state or restricting it to just the previous, if you go back to what was originally residential commercial in this corridor, it was only the first 300 feet, represented approximately here from Walden Avenue. And one of the reasons that people, continue to move to a place like Lancaster is because they have that nice, peaceful neighborhood that, as we heard earlier, we kept a lot of the buffer up by the Stony Brook subdivision up here with the park area. But what about, the area down by Skajakwita Creek? I don't know, I live right next to Skajakwita Creek, so I know a little bit about the wildlife. I see the foxes that run up and down the creek, the heron that fly in twice a day, in the morning and in the evening, that land at some of the area retention ponds and in the Skajakwita Creek itself. And this project, I think, having that much building space and parking lot space will adversely affect, both the creek and the watershed area. If you think about all the water and the rain that falls, it's got to go somewhere. A lot of it goes into growing the vegetation and keeping these nice green areas. And once you take away those green areas and replace them with parking lots and buildings, you're going to find the road salt ends up making your water a little more brackish, a little less wildlife, a little less desirable place to live. So I urge the board to, preserve the tranquility and think about the character of the neighborhood itself and the reason that it is residential and people want to move into this area, and to not take an easy way out and reduce everyone's value. We want growth, but not at the expense of other people. We don't necessarily have to have growth which has to take something away from the residents of the Walden Trace area and these other neighborhoods. Your houses will be that much more valuable to you as a person, and encourage people to stay a long time, continue to pay their taxes, and use a lot of the services of the town if they can have this opportunity that doesn't have, the headlights shining in the backyard, and you can still go out at night and take a look up at the stars at night without seeing the light standards, 15 or 30 feet tall in the background. Thank you. I appreciate your attention today.